Welcome back to another episode of the Executive Code podcast. And I'm joined here with Nicole to ask more questions about the information that you want to know more about. If you have any questions that you want to ask, by all means, join our Executive Code community. It's not on any of the social media platforms. And within that community, you can share the questions that you want to get asked on the actual podcast itself. Or if you want to be a guest on the podcast, you can go to our website and click on the podcast, and you'll find a way of how you can connect with ourselves and be a guest on the podcast itself. So, Nicole, what have you got for us this week?
So, Paul, in one of your earliest podcast episodes, I think it was episode 8, you mentioned that since you were a child, you've been picking up emphatically what an individual is feeling deep inside themselves. Everyone knows what empathy means, but I don't think many people know what an empath is. I myself only discovered the word empath last year and was a bit skeptical, to be honest. So I was wondering if you could share what exactly an empath is and what it's like being one.
Okay. First of all, it's hard. Second of all, I do appreciate the fact that you said you're skeptical, which is absolutely okay. It's absolutely perfect. I'm an accountant at the end of the day. So I would need to have a process. I need to have a system. I need to have logic. So when you get logic matched with intuitive and being an empath, it's a very, very different combination altogether. So let me just explain. First of all, empathy and being an empath are two very, very different things. Think of empathy as being when you can resonate with somebody and you know how the person is feeling. So that's a very conscious way of thinking. So empathy is knowing and being able to resonate with how that person is feeling. So I'm going to give you an example of that. So there's a client that I worked with a number of years ago. His name is George, and he's a funeral director. Really, really lovely guy. And in one of the conversations that I had with him, so he was a funeral director, and it was great to get behind the scenes of what happens behind the scenes as a funeral director. But one of the things in one of the meetings that we had was that the prerequisite when George was recruiting staff was that they had to have, he would only employ someone if they had themselves experienced a bereavement of a close parent, a sibling, or somebody really, really close to them from that perspective. And the difference was that in his experience, the people that had experienced the bereavement of a close relative or a very, very close friend could understand and have the empathy for the people, meaning his clients, that he was serving as a funeral director. So when somebody has gone through an experience like that, they can develop the empathy to know what it's like for somebody else. Being an empath is very, very different. Being an empath is you get to feel and you can feel what the other person is feeling. So on the one hand, from an empathy perspective, you know what it's like to feel like, but you don't feel it. Whereas being an empath, you actually feel what it is, well, I feel what it is that my clients feel. So look at it from my perspective. So it's always been with me since I was a kid. So people that I interacted with, and without me knowing and understanding it, and what I mean by understanding it, so I'd be able to feel what other people were feeling, but I didn't understand it at the time because nobody explained it to me. I as you said, Nicole, you only came across this, a short while ago. Being a kid growing up and feeling what other people are feeling, I mean, feeling on a deeper level what other people are feeling, and not knowing where these feelings are coming from and why was I feeling these things, is really, really hard. And even to this day, when I'm working with clients and I can feel what they're feeling, that can be hugely overwhelming. So there's a lot of things that I need to do in order to, for one better word, protect myself from those feelings and not take on those feelings. I'll give you some of the ways of how it manifests for me. When I'm working with a client and I can see what their purpose is through the knowings that I get, and the insights that I get. So I see what their purpose is, but not only that, but I get to see the impact that they are to have. So I know what they're to do, and I know the impact of what they're to do is going to have. Being an empath, I get to connect with the impact that they're making, meaning the difference they're making, the people that they're making a difference for. And I also get to connect with them themselves in making that difference. So I'm seeing it from both sides. I'm seeing it from my clients making a difference and what they're feeling when making a difference. But I'm also getting to feel and to experience what it's like for the people that they're making the difference for, if you follow what I mean. So I'm seeing it from both sides, but I'm not seeing it from a top layer perspective. What do I mean by that? You, again, on a previous episode, you referred to the many faces that people have, and there's 3 faces. So just recall is that, you referred to the post, which was there's the face that people show to the world, there's the face that people have in the family, and then there's the face that they have when they're just on their own and they're sitting on their couch. Okay. It's much, much deeper than that. So where people can have the persona and they can express their personality and express what it is that they're experiencing, and they can give off a feeling from what they're presenting to the world, meaning to their friends, their colleagues, or even to me, they can express one thing. But being an empath, it's much, much deeper than that, from the perspective of I get to feel the inner person within that person, if that makes sense. The true essence or the true person within that person. So it's not so much the person displaying their personality, it's the inner person, the real true essence, inner person within them that even they don't actually connect with or they don't even see. It's that inner that I'm actually connecting with as an empath. And that can be overwhelming in a lot of different ways, depending on what that individual is actually experiencing. So that can be good or it can be bad, because you're getting a whole range of different emotions and feelings and experiences. So it can be overwhelming in a lot of different ways, but it's a full spectrum of emotions and feelings, if that makes sense.
So as an empath, do you have to actually speak to a person or, see them to actually understand to actually feel what they're feeling?
Yeah, it's a really, really good question. One thing that I've as I've kind of developed it over the years and understood it a little bit more of how I work. And again, I'm not saying because I've never had a teacher to teach me what I need to do, if you understand what I mean, in how I work. So from an intuitive perspective, I've never had a teacher. From an empathic perspective, I've never had a teacher. From putting people on their purpose, I've never had a teacher. So I've had to learn different ways to navigate my journey on how I work. And so from my perspective, I can only talk from my side of things. From my perspective, I don't know about other empaths because I haven't had lengthy conversations with other empaths. I know a lot of other empaths, but I haven't had lengthy conversations with them from that side of things. So I'm just going to give you from my perspective. Once I have the permission, which is critical from my perspective, once I have the permission to connect with an individual, well, then I'll connect with them. So what do I mean by that? Think of it as being, so I'm a trained accountant. It's what I originally qualified in. So with being a trained accountant, you have a code of ethics that you work with. Being the work that I do as an intuitive and being an empath, I also, for want of a better word, have my own code of ethics. And one of those is I've got to have their permission. And if I don't have their permission, well, then I don't connect. Let's just call it connection for the moment. So once they become a client, now I have the permission. Now, how I can connect with them. So I can connect with them. So if I give a few different ways, if they're face-to-face, I can connect with them. If they're over Zoom, I can connect with them. If they're over telephone, I can connect with them. I can be given a picture of the person and not be on telephone or on Zoom or whatever it be, and I'll be able to connect. But I'm not connecting with what the picture is displaying. And I've done this multiple times with people. That photograph can display the persona at that time. However, what I'm connecting with is the true essence of that individual. And so I'm seeing past the photograph, if that makes sense. And I get to feel what it is that that person is feeling and experiencing from that side of things. It's not just a one snapshot. It's not just a moment in time. It's their experience as an overall, if that makes sense. It's not just a moment in time. It's that experience for one better word, a period of time. I know that doesn't really fully explain it, but it's the only way I can describe it. So there's multiple ways of how I can connect with people, if that makes sense. So don't necessarily have to be physically talking to them. I can, one of the ways I do love is actually connecting with them on true photograph. Think of it being a photograph or a telephone or a Zoom call. It's making that phone call. You're making that connection. And once the connection is open, now I'm able to get the information. Okay, but it's always with the permission of the client.
But it's pretty easy to differentiate between your own feelings and the other person's feelings.
Oh yeah. Very, very easy. Yeah. Well, sorry, it is easy now. It's easy now. Yeah, going back as a kid. Oh my God. Oh yeah. No, it was tough. Yeah. So when you're growing up in a family of 6 other siblings and 2 parents, and being at school and all that kind of things, it's tough. It's really, really tough. Hence the reason why I always say I never really enjoyed my childhood. But I didn't understand it at the time. I didn't understand a lot of things that happened at the time, different traumas, different things that I went through. I couldn't make sense as a kid at that time. It wasn't until later on in life that I could actually start to make sense of it, and the different events and experiences and things that I was encountering, if that makes sense.
And was there a particular moment in your life where you realized that this wasn't, something that everyone had, that it was like a special gift that you had?
Until much, much later. I just took it as being, well, everybody feels the same. So so let me go back to something that we discussed before, which is suicide ideation. So I started suicide ideation at the age of 10. I just assumed everybody else was having the exact same feelings and thoughts as I was having, and people were just getting on with their life. That's what I absolutely fundamentally understood. And it wasn't until I'm talking much, much later in life, when I was in my 40s, and I realized, oh, okay, so actually, no, this isn't what other people, or for one better word, normal people get to experience. So yeah, I had quite a lot of revelations much, much later in life, as opposed to, it started to come through maybe from age 30 onwards, was a few different, I won't call them awakenings, but I had a few different significant insights or downloads is what I refer to them as. I remember one when I was age 30. I still remember where I was, all the kind of things. It was just absolutely phenomenal, that download. So from there, then I started to figure out a way of trying to understand what it was. Yeah. And how I was experiencing different things. Yeah.
But you said you've had this, you've noticed this since you were age 10, correct?
Yeah.
Do you think, being an empath, do you think other people's feelings affected your feelings or shaped your view on things growing up?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because when you can't make sense of the feelings that you're having and you don't realize that they're not your feelings, well, then now that's your perception or that's your view of what's going on. So if there was an argument taking place, for example, and I wasn't even privy to the argument in some respects, but I knew what was going on, or I could feel what was going on, try and make sense of that, and you're not even in the room.
So then your suicide ideation, do you think that was yours completely, or do you think that was, a result partially of?
No, I don't believe it was as a result of somebody else. Absolutely not. I don't believe that whatsoever. It's a result of quite a few different things, between different traumas, different events, and all that kind of stuff. That's one thing. But ultimately, my thinking at that time was I just did not want to be here. Now, if I could go an awful lot deeper in this in terms of past lives and what we're here as a soul and a spirit to do and all that kind of things, I could go into all that subject matter. It'd be alien to an awful lot of listeners. That's okay, because it's just what their understanding is, and that's okay. But for me, in this particular lifetime, I just did not want to be here. So for me to check out, or my desire to check out as early as possible, was absolutely there. I never shared it with anybody, absolutely never shared it with anybody, until much, much, much later in life. But part of it was down to me not wanting to be here. Secondly, down to different events and different things that went on in my childhood, down to the feelings that I was picking up from other people and so on. So it's a whole mixed case, but not from the perspective of, was I picking up somebody else's suicide ideation? Therefore, no, absolutely not.
I can imagine that's pretty scary, especially as a kid, wondering what's going on, why you're getting all these feelings. But it's also been a huge part of your purpose in helping other people find their life's purpose.
And that's when it wasn't until much, much later, because what I went through, so when I started my career and I started giving advice to, even though it was only a young book at the time, and I was giving advice to my managers as regards what they should do in terms of the business and all that kinds of things. And then lo and behold, they implement it, and it makes a significant difference for they themselves and the business. I was only a young fella. So I just again had the understanding of, well, sure, everybody else can do this. Sure, everybody else does this. I'm not different. I'm not unique from that perspective. But in the back of my mind, and as I developed my career and my business, my own consultancy business, and I was putting people on the right track, for one better word, meaning I was putting them on the purpose. I was putting them in the line that they were going to have and reach their full potential and have the most success. I was doing that naturally without necessarily even thinking about it. But a constant thing for me was I had a desire that I wish somebody would actually come to me and say, well, look, Paul, this is what you need to do. Here's what your purpose is. And it wasn't until I had, for one better word, I had an aha moment or an epiphany to say, okay, so that's what my purpose is actually doing what I naturally do anyway, which is putting people under purpose and putting people on the right track. So what I do naturally that's what my purpose is. So all the things that I would have experienced as a kid and growing up in throughout my career, my business, and all that kind of things, between the suicidation, between the mental health, is what we discussed before in the previous episode, all of those different experiences, even down to becoming an accountant and doing all other training as well as being an accountant. So doing taxation, doing electronics, doing computer programming, doing, you name it, all those kind of different types of trainings of has human behavior and psychology and philosophy and so on, all come together with the work that I currently do. So what I mean by that is that when I put people on the right track and I tell them what their purpose is, and it's so easy to do, from my perspective, so easy to do. And that's why people are amazed at how on earth can you tell me my purpose within a half a day? It's so simple. Again, partly because of I've been doing it for years from an intuitive perspective, but also from the methodology that I developed. And I'm very, very different and very unique in terms of nobody else does what I do. So they're amazed at how I can deliver their purpose within a half a day. And someone can say, well, they're looking for that big revelation in terms of they want to have a purpose a bit like, for example, Nelson Mandela or Gandhi or Mother Teresa or whoever it might be that they perceive as being significant players in the world. And they are. They've been massive leaders in the world. But the only place you're going to get a revelation is in the Bible. There's a whole section of revelations in the Bible. So if you want a revelation, go to the Bible. But if you want to know what your purpose is, and that's absolutely unique to you, well, then there's a process that'll bring people through. But immediately, absolutely immediately, what comes up, Nicole, is that when they know what their purpose is, now immediately it's a case of, Who am I to do that? How am I to do it? Where do I even start? How am I supposed to make money out of it? Will people even pay me to do what I actually do naturally and I love to do? So all of those questions come up. So now what kicks in is all the knowledge and information that I have gone back over years of growing and scaling companies and developing businesses and growing businesses and being an accountant. All of that now comes to the fore to turn their purpose into a business. And now I help them to grow their business in order to fulfill their purpose. And the more I grow their businesses or help them to grow their businesses, the more impact that they're going to make. And we go back to being an empath, where I get to see the difference they're making and to feel the difference for the people that they're making. That's huge. That's absolutely huge. Not only to feel what they're feeling or what they're going to feel, but also for the difference and the impact it's going to make for the people that they're to impact. That's why part of the reason why I absolutely love what I do, because then I get to see the feeling. And I could go much, much deeper in this in terms of your intentions and the impact of your intentions, which is absolutely huge. So when you get to the end and you kind of look back over your life and say, okay, so what is the impact or what's the difference that you made? It's the intention, and it's literally that feeling of how does the person feel from the action that you've taken. And that's really a much, much deeper understanding of purpose.
So just to be clear for our listeners, being an empath is a gift and it's not something that can be learned by anyone, correct?
Can it be learned? It's a good question. Can an empath be learned? I believe it can. I don't know for certain because it's not something I do. It's not something I teach or train. And I've never been to a trainer, as I said before. Intuition can definitely be learned. Absolutely. Being an empath is, I would say, it's a stronger, for one better word, as I think about it, it will be a stronger intuitive side, if that makes sense. So they're kind of slightly different. But for me, it would be like an advanced intuition. Let me explain it that way. So can you learn? I haven't tried it with other people, but I'd be very, very surprised if they couldn't. Yeah, if it couldn't be learned, if that makes sense. But I don't know. I honestly haven't never done any research on it, and I don't know. So I'm only going from what I think.
Might have some clients reaching out to you to learn how to be an empath now.
Well, a lot of the clients want to know how to develop their intuition. Yeah, it's definitely what we do within the executive lounge. Yeah.
And last one, you've mentioned, your being an empath might be from the Irish myth about being the seventh son of the seventh son of the seventh son. Did you always know about the myth growing up? And then, as you were getting all these feelings from other people, realize that it could be from that myth?
Yeah. Okay. You're really going deep now, Nicole. Okay. So okay. So let me give you that one. I grew up being the seventh son of a seventh. I knew that from very early on. And the reason being is that part of my childhood was, so being the seventh son of a seventh, it will be very, very common in Ireland, or quite common in Ireland, especially in the country areas, or what's referred to as the country areas in Ireland, because I know in the States, I don't know why you refer to it as country in the States. But in Ireland, think of the country as being, that's where you have the farms. All right. So we very, very common amongst the farming background. Okay. Now, both my parents were from the country. So therefore, when I was born the seventh son of a seventh, they immediately knew, okay, here's the seventh son. So therefore, now he is bound to have natural gifts based on the folklore and so on. There's a few different tests that you can do as being the seventh son of a seventh, which were done on me by my siblings, and they were doing it for a bit of crack. Which one of the tests is that if you put a worm on your hand, will the worm die or will it survive? And the test is, if the worm dies, well, then you have the gift. So that's one of the tests that my siblings played out on me. and there is
You were the youngest.
No, okay, so okay, you're really, really going deep here. I'm not the youngest. I know I'm not the youngest because I have a younger brother.
Oh, okay.
So let me explain that, because no, you're right, because let me explain it. So, okay, so growing up, there were seven brothers, there were seven sons growing up. For me, there were seven sons growing up, but I was still the seventh son. But I had a younger brother, or I still have a younger brother. So, but unbeknownst to me, and I didn't know it until a little bit later on, was that we had another brother which died at birth. So his name is William. So his name was William, and he was born between he would have been the fourth son to be born, but he died at birth. So that's how I actually ended up being the seventh son within the family. Now, so my birthday. So let me give another little piece on the jigsaw. My birthday is the 24th of March, 1968. William was born on the 24th of March, 1961. So William was born, or I was born, on the same day as William was born and died on the same day, and 7 years apart. I was given the second name as being William, hence the reason my website is Paul William Davis. So not only was I the seventh son as a result of William, but I shared the same birthday as William and was born 7 years to the day that William passed away. So for me personally, it has a huge amount of connection, let's put it that way. And if you can understand what we discussed earlier on in terms of being an empath, you will get an idea of what also I was picking up every single time it was my birthday. So that's just to add a little piece to it. And move a little forward. So it's the seventh son of a seventh. But also when I wrote my book, as a kid, when you know that you're a healer, which is the thing as being a seventh son of a seventh, you have the gift as being healing. What I was doing as a kid is that I was doing hands-on healing for people that used to come to the house. So my mum, knowing that I was the seventh son, people would come to the house and I would do hands-on healing for them. And there's a whole range of different things that they would come to the house with, whether it be rheumatism, cancer, you name it, a whole load of different symptoms or illnesses that they were presenting with. And I'd do hands-on healing with them and they go away healed. So that's what I used to do as a kid. But then when it came to a teenager, that wasn't so cool. So I literally did not want to do any more hands-on healing. So I rebelled against doing healing. I do a different form of it now. I don't do any more hands-on healing. I do a different form of it in a different way. I don't say it to a lot of people. I just do it, for one of the word, privately, for a lot of people. And then roll forward then when I published my first book, Evolve, in 2012. And bear in mind, my parents never, and my siblings never saw a copy of the book before it was published. So they attended the book launch, which was launched by Senator Fergal Quinn, an absolutely amazing person. And that's when they got to see the book. So when they started to read the book and they saw that I referred to the fact that I was the seventh son of the seventh, my mum pulled me aside a couple of weeks later after reading the book and said, actually, Paul, you're the seventh of a seventh of a seventh. So that's what I didn't realize. So hence the reason in the book, it's only referred to as the seventh of seventh. So is it part of the fact that I'm the seventh of seventh of seventh? I actually really don't know. That's to be quite honest with you, Nicole. There's a lot of folklore around it. There's a lot of tradition and understanding from it. As I said, going back, my brothers played a little trick on me in terms of the test, whether I had it or not. So all I can go on based on is it down to that? I really honestly don't know. But I can, for me, go on the basis of the clients I've worked with from a healing perspective, the difference I've made for them in terms of different things that I've done without them even knowing that I've done it. I just hear later on, stories back, and I know then it's different things that have worked and so on, and putting people on their purpose and so on. I just bring the whole lot together, and I just do what it is that I do. If you were to ask me where does it come from, all I am is just an instrument. That's all I am. So it's not me. It's absolutely not me. I'm just an instrument. I'm just a tool, let's put it that way. And therefore, with that instrument is the work that I do.
And the number 7 also means perfection or completion in the Bible.
Yeah. There's 3 numbers that are absolutely significant for me, 3, 7, and 12. So yeah, in the Bible, and a lot of you'll see 7 appear in a lot of different ways, but it's a very, very powerful number. Yeah, and when you get 777, well, then you can imagine the power that's behind that. Yeah.
But you don't have 7 sons yourself.
Okay. I don't have 7 sons myself. It's hard enough looking after 2 sons. My God. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Paul, for sharing more about yourself.
Thank you, Nicole. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that one. We went a little bit deeper than I was anticipating, but all good, I hope, and I hope you enjoyed it. Listen, thanks for listening to this podcast episode. If you want to have more or you want to hear more, come subscribe to our podcast channel. It's on all the various, all your favorite podcast channels, or you can watch the video on our YouTube and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And again, what will help to reach more and more people and make an impact, make a difference, is literally if you share it amongst your friends and colleagues, leave a review and let other people know that the podcast exists. It's called the Executive Code Podcast, and there is a reason why it's called the Executive Code Podcast, but that's what it's called. So let other people know that it does actually exist. And it's about sharing the information and getting the information out there for other people and to help people on their journey, not just you, but also other people that are on their journey. All the links are in the show notes, or if you go to our website, paulwilliamdavis.com, you'll find all the links there as well. But until next time, I wish you every success.